Welcome to a new episode of the Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, a Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Power Platform and Copilot Studio team, and I'm joined by...
It is I, General Pinchal Jocelyn, Senior Product Manager of Power Platform and Copilot Security. So today we do not have Dr. No with us, but I do hope you guys all have a PhD because we are not going to be the low code approach today. We are going to be the pro code approach. Sean, who do we have with us?
So this is going to be a more technical podcast. I'm super stoked for it. So we're joined by Marcel and Casey. Gentlemen, so happy to have you on. We'll start with Casey first. Casey, tell us what you do, who you are, and what's going on.
Hey everyone, I'm Casey Burke. I'm a Principal Product Manager on the Power Apps team. My focus area is around application lifecycle management. So think about like CI/CD, DevOps, if you're a pro dev, very more familiar with those terms. We also focus a lot on application composition for model-driven apps. So if you think about kind of the whole infrastructure that powers model-driven apps and the ribbon and the sitemap and modern commanding and all that fun stuff.
And Marcel, what about you?
Hey, hello. Hi, Sean. Hello, everyone. I'm Marcel Ferreira. I'm a Senior Product Manager in the Power Apps Studio team. My background, as was mentioned, is pro development, although I feel like the expectation is too high, so I'm a bit scared. But should be fine. We focus on the inner loop. Basically, when the developer will create the application, that's where my team focuses. You could be creating like simple applications by drag and drop, or even pro code, like you want to add traditional programming language. We want everybody to be productive in Power Platform. Power Platform is for everyone, including professional developers, and that's what my team does.
Marcel, I love that you started off with that because for me, I don't come from a pro code background. I'm definitely more so on the low code side of things. I didn't come up with a traditional CS degree. So just talking about how low code is not just necessarily low code in that way, but it's more so code for whatever level of expertise you have. We will meet you there. That's so awesome. I want to start off by talking about what's new. You mentioned to me before that we have some new updates with regards to the CodeApps space. Give me the rundown. What are we talking about?
Yes, well, that's super exciting because on this, not new anymore, but on the AI world, there is a trending term, which is vibe coding. And by vibe coding, what it is, basically, you talk to a prompt and the prompt will do the coding for you, right? And so because of that, again, in Power Platform, we always had this mission of making pro developer comfortable, showing the code and helping them to write the code with the languages that they are familiar. And because we always had that, now the prompt can also understand the code. And you mentioned CodeApps. So what we are doing now, we are allowing the developer to bring TypeScript code, React code, like vanilla web code. So you bring your own code to Power Platform. You do your front end the way you want. You can vibe code, you talk to the prompt, you can use any ID you want. Once you are ready to connect to data, you use the Power Platform data. So you don't need to worry about secrets. You can leverage the connectors, and Power Platform can be that enterprise platform where you can scale. So you don't need to worry about security. We will take care of that for you. So pretty exciting about that.
That is awesome. As a crusty old web dev, hearing you say that TypeScript is vanilla web language is crushing my soul. That is awesome.
As a non-pro code person, hearing you call it vanilla as well crushes my soul as I struggle to learn what I was doing as a 19-year-old intern. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no. Like that is so cool to hear, and I think what I'd love to get more into with CodeApps is understanding. Does this really democratize the pro code experience, and does that help educate those of us that don't have that pro code background to build more robust solutions? What are you seeing? What are you hearing in that space?
Yes. So at the moment, we have a little bit for everybody. So it's important to mention, we are on private preview. So I am driving more the pro code part we call bring your own code. So you do need to know a little bit of code just to understand the packages, right? So you need to understand what is npm just to be able to install. The prompt is getting better and better and better, but can be a little bit overwhelmed for makers. So for the maker, we have also the generative UX private preview, which is basically within Maker Portal. you are able to use natural language. For that, you don't need to know anything about NPM. You can see TypeScript, but you don't need to know TypeScript. So you can create generative pages on Maker Portal in real time. That is for makers and is awesome. That should be coming in public preview very soon. But again, at the moment, we have these two private preview programs. In the future, the idea, yes, we will have those combined together. But at the current moment, private preview, we have a GitHub repo. It will require a little bit of understanding, but look, the prompt is pretty good. You mentioned, Jocelyn, that you struggle a little bit with TypeScript, and I have to confess one thing. I'm a backend developer, so I am not super familiar with TypeScript, and I can create front-end apps. I can create, it is awesome. I just talked to a
Where
prompt.
was this
Magic
when I
happened.
was a dev intern for 2 sad months of my life? Where was this?
I know.
Right.
It is
So-
overwhelming.
So let me just one of the staples of the podcast we try to go by is not use acronyms, or if we do, we explain them. Can you explain what NPM is?
Oh, that's very interesting. So that is how you manage packages when you do TypeScript development. So think about the Windows Store. When you install apps, like you find an app and you install an app, you can do that from the terminal using NPM. NPM will install for you, and also it will install all the dependencies. It will keep updated. So that is a system for pro developers, and any front-end developer, they use that every day. Okay? It's not a single one. It's one of the most popular.
Yep, totally agree. Yeah, it is. It's fundamental. It's what you need to know. But you know what? Speaking of fundamental and also throwing the blame game out for acronyms is Casey. Casey, you mentioned something earlier, CI/CD, and how you work on that. What's CI/CD, and how does that relate with GitHub? And tell me how GitHub relates with all this amazing stuff that Marcel just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about well, I'll explain the acronym first. So continuous integration and then continuous deployment. So, traditionally, I think a lot of folks in Power Platform have kind of thought about, one side of that equation where I'm just building my app. But really in the enterprise space, and as pro devs think about it, it's really more of a unison and a dance between when I check in my code, that should automatically get deployed out to the production environment and released. And so it's really about automating that process to make developers super productive in their workflow, that they're constantly checking in their code changes. Maybe you pull in some citizen developers to the project as well, and they're working together. And when they're ready, they can go ahead and queue that build, and it automatically deploys to the production environment.
Follow-up question. Casey, sir, Mr. Burke, you know that we talk a lot about all of the overall management story, right? And you just went ahead and talked a little bit about deploying and having solutions and things like that. Can you help me put into proportion with the greater managed operations end-to-end development story, how some of the goodness that Marcel was talking about earlier really relates to your ability to go from testing to this is now a production grade solution?
Yeah, for sure. And so, and granted, kind of where we're at with bring your own code and the Gen UX pages, it's still private preview, it's evolving, but where we're going with it is really to support the full managed ops stack. And so as you think about, getting started, maybe you're working out of VS Code and you build this amazing app. And then what you can do from there is, professional developers, especially working with a team, they don't just want to keep that code on their local machine. You typically will check it into a code repository. So, for example, Azure DevOps or GitHub or the Microsoft ones. So we've been working with what we call Git integration in Power Platform. And so that is kind of the next step to make sure that that code can work seamlessly with the other assets in Power Platform. Everything can get pushed to the code repository. And then we have our inbuilt pipelines as well. And so once you push that in, you want to queue your build, go ahead and build the solution file, as we call it in Power Platform, which is basically the binary of all the objects that you want to deploy to your application. And you deploy that out to maybe a test environment. Automated testing as well is kind of the managed ops stack. So there's a lot of work that's been going on in that front to not only test your apps, but also your agents as well. And there were some really cool things that we showed off. Build, for example, being able to use AI to generate automated tests and then go ahead and run those. Once we're good with the quality, a lot of times that will go out to either a business owner or an admin to approve the production deployment. They can kind of review all the details. Everything goes into prod, but then what happens next, right? We want to make sure that application or your agents, they stay healthy and in a good running state for your end users in production. So we use now Monitoring Hub, or the monitoring page as we call it officially, and that will send you different alerts. If anything might be wrong with the application, you can go ahead and fix that. And then the lifecycle kind of, it's not kind of one and done type of thing. It's an ongoing thing, right? Yeah, and so we also have MonHub that allows you to monitor your applications in production and send you alerts if anything is detected, and different users can create different rules just to subscribe to those alerts. And then it's a repeat cycle. So for example, if an issue is detected, you want to send that back through the development loop, fix the issue, and then test it and send it back, deploy it to production. And then you can repeat that process for your new feature development as well.
Very, very, very cool. We are seeing all these massive, massive investments going across the space for both pro code and low code developers. But we always get this question. And actually, we had a whole conversation about it with Dave Milton on an episode called The Developer's Dilemma. And it was about the pain points and the struggle as a developer to take on low code as a tool, right? As this is another tool in my tool belt as a developer to build robust enterprise-wide solutions. And so, Marcel, you went over all these amazing new things coming for Power Apps. What are the conversations that you're having? How do you get over, or at least help those skeptical developers, pro developers, with adoption?
I love the question because I know Dave Milton and all what he described. I went through that. I was one skeptical developer. So that's the thing. At the beginning, pro developers, they have a misconception. They think low code is just drag and drop, is actually harder. You put the makers to do things and we'll have to come and fix later. But at the moment that you realize, what is the point of low code? Basically, you want to avoid to manually write lots of code. You want to minimize the amount of the code that you need to maintain. And there is another thing on development that does the same, which is frameworks. That's why we have React. That's why people don't write everything using assembly, because we want to minimize the maintenance code. So once you realize that you can leverage low code for that, for example, when you write forms over data, this is pretty standard. You do this every day, is kind of boring. But with low code, it's super easy because you define your ERD, you get a UI out of box. And the beauty for low code for pro developer is that you can add code only when you need, right? So you can create forms over data, you can define the ERD, you will get a UI out. Maybe that's enough. Maybe you want to add more things. That's when you start to add code. And the part that we didn't have before, it was the possibility for you to bring your whole front end. So for example, if you want to create a specific UI control, you could use what we call PCF, okay, which is Power Platform Code Framework. So code components we call. Now, you cannot bring only components, you can bring the whole page. So that allows front-end developers, they don't need to learn anything from specifically Power Platform. They just do what they are doing today. They create the front end, they make it available in Power Platform, and we just consume that. As Casey was saying, all these things that he mentioned, like CI, CD, test automation, all of that, it is normal for pro developers, but it's not normal for makers. That can be overwhelming. The Git integration, the monitoring hub, and all these experiences, the managed environments that we build on Power Platform allows the maker to participate on that, on all the safeguard, without even knowing. They don't need to know, but they have the enterprise-grade platform that can put the guardrails in place so you have control and you can scale your application.
There was so much goodness in that. But I want to ask you, can you help me if I were a pro dev at a different organization and I needed to convince my leadership to be willing to invest in Power Platform, despite the whole low code mantra of Power Platform, but to say, no, LT, this is good for me as a pro dev. What would you focus on most in that conversation?
I would focus on the governance and security, basically the managed platform.
Marcel is validating my job. I love this.
The reason for that it is, look, you don't live in a silo, right? You need to consume data from other platforms. Every platform has a way to connect. So you need to manage secrets. You need to manage authentication. That is not fun. That is definitely not fun. Power Platform does that for you. And not only that, but every time you create things from zero, you need to maintain that. That's why people, like every day, just now, there is a new JavaScript framework to write UIs. Would you use that? Not sure about that. So that's the beauty of Power Platform. Like, you don't pay the cost for maintain. That is given for you, and I guarantee you is pretty safe.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point, especially when you're using any code dependencies, right? Like as you're bringing in additional libraries through npm into the work that you're building. Anyway, so like let me pose that question to you, Casey. Then, kind of piggybacking what Marcel just talked about. What about the pro code to admin relationship, right? So like if you're taking a developer, a pro developer, and making them an advocate now for that, how does that then go to the admin side where you talk about that DevOps tooling that you're providing too, and then building up a stronger story through the management narrative?
Yeah, I would say one thing that we've really focused on is the ability to manage it at scale. So whether you're building completely citizen-led applications or solutions, or you have pro codes developers working on the maybe different, more advanced applications, admins can manage their whole portfolio using the same tools, right? And as we think about the ALM process or application lifecycle management and managed ops, really it's designed to scale across those simple projects as well as the really advanced projects, and without having to retool and hook up a bunch of different stuff to support the different personas that are building apps on the platform.
Follow-up question to that, because you started to talk about how there can be disparate projects throughout all of these solutions. A little bit of a pivot. There are many ways that a pro dev could build across various Microsoft suites, right? You can go ahead and be your old school, old-fashioned Visual Studio, old school for me, Visual Studio, right? Or you could go about this by doing your solutions in Power Platform, or even now we have Foundry and all of these other ways that you can go about building your AI resources. What do you think? I don't want to say it's a differentiator because Marcel already said our management wins, right? But from the perspective of a pro code dev, why would I still prefer Power Platform since the admin stuff is not my job? I'll pose that to Casey first.
Yeah, so, and granted, Marcel's probably been a developer a little more recently than I have. I'm a bit of a dinosaur in that space, but yeah, I would say that there's a lot of tasks that developers find redundant, and it's not the most exciting part of their job. Marcel mentioned, dealing with authentication layers. There's also dealing with infrastructure, right? It's not really that fun for most developers. And Power Platform handles that all for you. And so really it's about focusing on the tasks that you're passionate about focusing on, coming up with new proof of concepts and kind of, I don't know, Marcel probably has a better example for what he likes to do. But the point is that you can also get to market a lot faster because the platform is handling all that for you. Right. So I think there's a lot of value for any pro developer coming onto Power Platform and just being able to get set up quickly, get their code to production. And it's a really high quality application that's going to continue running. And so, yeah, I think there's just a ton of value in that.
Marcel, do you have stuff to add here?
Yes, I would like to add to that. So the beauty as well, it is the innovation. Like you can infuse agents in your app. And this is pretty advanced stuff. And in Power Apps, Power Platform is pretty easy to do. So if you want to experiment and innovate with Copilot, with a little bit of agent within your app, I'm not talking about only using, but building that in your app. That's the beauty as well. So that's why I think Power Platform is a great platform for you to innovate, because it is so quick and easy to deploy something, validate a concept, and make production ready. So innovation, I think, is one great differential for Power Platform.
That's awesome. Marcel, let me ask another question that's related to development and pro code integration into Power Platform and Power Apps. Like it's not normally just one individual doing all the development for these solutions, right? It's a team, right? And that's onboarding and offboarding individuals onto that team too. Can you talk a little bit to the show your work aspect of this, right? Like I'm inserting comments. I want to make sure that when a junior dev comes onto the team afterwards, they understand what I made, why I made it, and the decision points throughout that process. Can you talk to how Power Platform provides that functionality?
Absolutely, great point. And not only people, but agents as well. So, for example, with the plan designer, you can bring agents to help you to build your solutions. And I would say that the keyword is solution. Here's the thing: developers like code because code provides a way for you to understand all the components of what you are building. And that is not ambiguous. That developers don't like ambiguous things. They like well-defined things, right? Makers, they don't know, but they like that as well. And they don't need to read code. Not all. But my point is, we make so easy in Power Platform through the solutions. In this solution, we have a visual representation for all the components that you build. And that visual representation is the source code for the maker. Because he can see, like, I'm using this table, or I'm using this prompt, I'm using this agent, I'm using this app. And if you are a pro developer, you can go and see the code behind it using the Git integration. So that's what we want. We want you to keep doing what is natural for you. If you use a programming language, you want to understand what is going on in Power Platform, you go with Git integration, you see the code. If you're a maker, you go to Maker Portal, you open your solution, and you see all the components there. And if you are using pipelines, you can also deploy this solution. You can see the description of the deployments. All that user experience helps to make super simple to understand what is going on and how do you deploy, how do you build the solutions in all the steps.
Yeah, and really it's about kind of, approaching different users in their natural flow of work. And so you can start as a maker in a very visual experience and you're not looking at code. It feels more like PowerPoint as you're designing, the interface and so forth. And then to get to the code layer, though, it's just a couple clicks away, and you can push that into your source code repository and really get down to the deeper levels. And what's really exciting about all these new AI tools that are coming out, too, is once you get into, say, VS Code, for example, even if you're not a code-first developer, it can explain what the code is doing. So I think that's a really interesting and cool space as we think about fusion development and kind of bridging that divide between the business and the developers.
We're almost at time, but before we wrap, it's the middle of summertime right now while we are recording this, but we are getting amped up for fall conference season. So I just want to ask each of you, will you be at Power Platform Community Conference this fall? And what should we be excited to hear about from you guys? We can start with Marcel.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get started. Definitely we want to talk about CodeApps. We are very soon to public preview. Our repo, our GitHub repo is public, so go to aka.ms/CodeApps. You can see there, ask questions, raise discussions, sign up, but definitely at the conference, we will talk about that, and I'm looking forward to hear all your feedback. I'm super excited about this feature. I think you can see.
On you, Casey?
Yeah, so to start the conference, it's going to be a busy one as usual, but I'm super excited to be back. We're going to kick it off with an ALM workshop. Marcel, I don't know if you know this yet, but we are signed up to lead an ALM workshop. So that's going to kind of kick it off. Yeah, and then we'll have sessions throughout the week. So we're going to be talking what's new and what's coming up for managed operations. And we're going to do some very demo-heavy sessions. That's always the style we like to go for, and kind of talk about the end-to-end process. So not about just simple apps, but how do you really scale that up across your development teams and then really across your entire organization. So there will be a little bit in there for everyone.
Casey, that's awesome. Marcel, just because I know that Casey mentioned the workshop, right? And so there's going to be hands-on with a lot of the tooling that we discussed today. Will CodeApps be available to get your hands dirty on as you're at PPCC?
I hope so, but I promise if it's not available, I will show, because I love showing things, even if it's my development environment. But I expect, yes, you will have some new things coming there.
You heard it first here, people. Track Marcel down and go and take a look, because he's got some awesome stuff. And Casey has some awesome stuff.
I'm on the spot. He didn't even know he was doing a workshop until a minute ago.
This is real-time acknowledgement. That is awesome. Casey, Marcel, we always appreciate having you on the podcast. This has been a great conversation. We're going to have to get into much more technical topics, and we're really excited to dive in with both of you. And we'll be seeing you guys at Power Platform Community Conference, workshops, demos, breakout sessions, all the goodness involved with the pro code and DevOps aspects of Power Platform. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
listening.
having me, and looking forward to catch up with community makers and programmers, everybody.
Yay.